What's up, Cowboys Nation? It's been such a long time since I've seen each and every one of you. We're here for the finale. It is the end of this Cowboys season. The Dallas Cowboys lose to the Washington Commanders 23-19 in a game that came down to the final seconds. It was exciting. I'll give you that. It was worth the watch if you watch this game. But the Cowboys officially end their season 7-10. They missed the playoffs. They were eliminated a few weeks ago. You're playing for pride at this point, and we leave this game with a lot of question marks. We leave a lot of question marks in terms of players. Is it their final time playing for the Cowboys? And specifically, we're looking at the defensive coordinator position. Mike Zimmer, is this it for him? Mike McCarthy, is this it for him? I mean, so many question marks, but I have the answer. As you guys already know, thank you so much for liking and subscribing. And if you've been here for a while, you know we like to open up some liquor on the final game of the season, and this one is no exception. We're going to pop that open. Ooh, baby, that smells good. If you're wondering what I'm drinking, it is something from my father-in-law. Shout out to Richard out there if he's watching. Handy and Schiller. We got a nice bourbon whiskey, 42%, so we're going to go ahead and pour some in there. Ooh-wee. It is 5 o'clock somewhere. It's 3:20 p.m. right now, and the Dallas Cowboys officially, look, it's been 29 years, y'all. Hold up. Let me take a quick sip of this. Ooh, yeah. That does the trick right there. I love that. That's really good stuff. But yes, look, man, it's been 29 years, or 28 years. I'm 28, and the Cowboys have not been to the Super Bowl, let alone an NFC Championship game, and that stands true for another year. It is crazy the amount of money and time I invest in this football team, and they have not given anything back to me. But the Cowboys are 7-10. They lose the final two games of their season, both to division opponents, to the Eagles and here to the Commanders, even though they had a chance right here. Trey Lance finally gets to play this game. And look, man, that was long overdue, really. The fact that you traded for him, and we waited. We saw him in preseason. And the fact that he's due to be a free agent, y'all. He is due to be a free agent next season, or this coming off season. And the fact that this is the first time that he is playing as a starter for this team is ridiculous. It's just, we're so poorly ran, man. Let's just jump into this crap. We're so poorly ran. And I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen. I could tell you what I'd like to see happen, and I'll probably make a whole video about what I believe the offseason move should be. But really, you should be embarrassed. The Dallas Cowboys should be embarrassed about the product that they put out on the field this year. Despite what you feel about maybe the strong little run that we had going into these final few games and how they fought and they clawed and they brought some excitement, at least we weren't getting blown out like we were in that awful stretch in the middle of the season, it still is a disaster what you saw this season. And everyone could have told you that. I was saying that before the season even began. The season does not start in September, y'all. Technically, that's when week 1 begins. But the season right now for the Cowboys starts right now. It should start right now. And you should feel embarrassed, ashamed from a football standpoint about how you played this year and how everything came out to be. Instead, they're going to blame it on injuries. They're going to blame it on this. And they're just not going to take accountability for how bad of a roster and how bad Jerry and Steven set this team up for success this year. It was all drama leading up to week 1. If we look back in hindsight, everything was just drama. There was no sort of structure for Mike to have any kind of chance at, having any type of success this season. And you know what? I'll tip my hat to Mike. This was a disaster of a season, man. Like injuries. And even when we didn't have injuries, we looked terrible. The offense looked awful. The defense was getting spanked. Everything was cheeks. It was so bad. But Mike somehow got us to a 7-10 record. And we're an Aruiwarie fumble on a punt return away from being 8-9. Man, let's take another drink. I really would hope to expect to see changes being made because you should be embarrassed. I mean, football is your identity. How many wins, how many losses, that should be your identity. But the Dallas Cowboys are just not that. They never will be. As a general manager, as an owner, you should be very disappointed in the way this season panned out. After having 3 straight 12-win seasons. And unfortunately, that's not going to, because I'll tell you what's going to happen. Jerry is going to drag the whole head coaching thing out. He's going to drag it out the same way he dragged out the CeeDee Lamb contract negotiations, the same way he dragged out the Dak Prescott contract negotiations. And we heard it all season long that this team needs to be here. This roster needs to be set. This coaching staff needs to be set by May so that you know that you have some sort of continuity that you can build off going into training camp, the mini camps, the voluntary camps, then going into the preseason, then going into the regular season. Details like that matter, but what Jerry and Steven want is they want a show. They want views. They want clicks. They want all of these things that don't mean anything to a football team, and this is the type of result that you get. Everything that came the way everything that came the way for the Dallas Cowboys, they deserved it, despite injuries. I'm not going to point out injuries and say they deserved injuries, but even if everyone was healthy, this season wasn't going to be success just because they pulled things together last minute to make something look like it wasn't. I mean, the Cowboys are a polished turd, and I am so glad we get to close this book of a season and cross our fingers and hope for the best next year. And you know what? I'm sick of the lies too, because they're going to sit back, and Steven has already talked about it. He's already getting ready for the offseason. He's saying, well, you know, we're buckled, we're tight because, you know, the salary cap. Look, if you want to win, you're going to go out there and give your team the best chance to win. You're going to find a way. Instead of finding ways to win, Steven is finding ways to save money, to stay underneath that cap. We've seen teams that have just, you know, threw the middle finger to the salary cap and say, you know what? We're a football team. We're going to compete. We're going to do everything in our power to put the best team out there, and we're going to live with the results. The Cowboys, on the other hand, they just like being penny pinchers, and you see the result that you get, 7-10. Look, I think Mike's a competent head coach. I think he is a fine head coach, and if it were me making decisions tomorrow morning, I'm not firing him. I'm extending him because, again, I'm thinking about the football aspect and saying, look, we got to get better next year. And so I'm re-signing Mike McCarthy. I know a lot of people don't like that, but look, Mike McCarthy is a great structure coach. He's a great organization coach. He's a great Monday through Saturday head coach. And you see the results. You see how the players react to him. You see how the players talk about him. You just really need to surround him with good coaches, which it should be, right? The head coach should be the head coach. He should establish the culture. Now, what we need to do is find a competent offensive play caller. Mike, the offensive play calling has been abysmal. I mean, going to the red zone, the amount of times we did this year and not score a touchdown and not put up 7, despite having Dak, despite not having Dak, having Cooper, having Trey. The issues were still there, and that starts with Mike McCarthy as an offensive play caller. And you know what? He dealt his hand. He made his bed. He said, I want to get rid of Kellen Moore, and I'm going to take over the play calling duties, and I think we're going to win because of that. And you know what? We came up short, so now it's time. I don't want to get rid of Mike. I like Mike. I think he should be there as your head coach. You just have to surround him with better coaching. And I think that's what we saw defensively. If you look at the first year, he brought in his buddy Mike Nolan. Terrible defense. Awful. They went 6-10. But then Jerry brings in a competent, good defensive coordinator for 3 seasons in Dan Quinn. There's no surprise that we went 12-5 those 3 straight seasons. Now you just got to do the other thing on the other hand with the offensive play calling. Is there a guy out there that we can bring in? I don't know. We're going to have to see how the market is. But, you know, Brian Schottenheimer can be that guy. Already offensive coordinator, could be that guy to play call. On the defensive side of things, look, I said it at the beginning of the year, even as far as back as May when I made my season prediction video. I said it was going to take a while for this defense to transition and to learn the ways of Mike Zimmer. That's exactly what we saw. But I know a lot of people like what Mike Zim did later in the season. But look, I'm going to keep it real. I'm unbiased and realistic. Just because I was gone a few weeks doesn't mean I'm not going to keep it real. The only reason why the Cowboys won the games and went on the streak they did to end the season is because you look at the teams that they played. They played nobodies. They played teams where their season was already over, except the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But they played, and it was kind of just like they did what they always usually do, where they beat on the bad teams, they beat on the teams that aren't even good, and then when it's time to play good, competent competition, like the Eagles, like the Commanders, excuse me, and you come up short and you lose to them, and you lose to the Bengals, who finish 9-8, and so defensively, I'm good with Mike leaving, and I think he might be out the door, which to me, I think you promote Al Harris. Give me Al Harris as defensive coordinator. I think you've seen the results of these former players who have gone coaches. And look, Jason Witten is not the answer to the head coaching position. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm thinking of the same way that Aaron Glenn has transitioned into the Lions defensive coordinator position and how well he's been able to execute that. I'm thinking the same thing can be done with Al Harris, and he's ready, man. I mean, he's already assistant head coach. He's getting promoted as the seasons go by. So for him to be defensive coordinator, and he says one day he wants to be a head coach. Well, look, you have to be a coordinator to take that next step if you want to be a head coach in the National Football League. So Al Harris, defensive coordinator. I personally, think you should promote Brian Schottenheimer to the offensive coordinator position. Keep Mike as the head coach, and there you go. There you go, Steven. You promoted and you kept it within house. You didn't go outside and outsource money. You kept it inside, and I think this team would be a lot better going into next season. Now, draft, man, we got to re-sign Rico, man. This draft is filled with a lot of running back talent. You don't got to go first round. I think you can go third, fourth round late in the draft. Get yourself a running back, re-sign Rico Dowdle for a cheap, good deal. What the Cowboys really need is a wide receiver. I mean, without 88 in that wide receiver room, we are bad, man. I mean, Jalen Tolbert looked good today because he was playing backups for the Washington Commanders. Brandon Cooks, last year of his deal, he's out of here. The Cowboys aren't going to re-sign him. Jonathan Mingo, I don't know. They may try him, but we haven't seen anything this year. With Ryan Flournoy, I don't know. You got to go out there and get a young guy. Now, personally, I'll go back to draft talks here. I really like going Xavier Worthy over Tyler Guyton. Obviously, that didn't turn out to be the case, but you got to go out there and get Dak some weapons. Anyone outside of 88, even when Dak was out on the field, even when CeeDee Lamb was out on the field, you just have to go out there and get Dak some help. You got to get him weapons to throw to. But this season has gone the other way. It's gone south, and we all knew it, man. I think the choices and the decisions that you make in the offseason directly reflect how you perform in the regular season. And the Cowboys didn't look aggressive at all offseason-wise, and this season turned out the way it was because this is the way that they planned and prepared for it in the offseason. Do I think there's a championship window closing? Oh, gosh, that's the ultimate question, right? But it's tough, man. I'm just glad the season's over. You get your lives back, and we get to watch some good football in the postseason, watch some other teams do it. And the Cowboys go 7-10. And it's kind of poetic because it bookends Mike McCarthy's tenure because Mike went 6-10 in his first season, then he goes 7-10 in his final season. But coincidentally, in those two seasons, he did not have a starting quarterback for a long duration. But let me know what you think down below. I'm really curious to feel your thoughts about this. It's an interesting situation because I think if the Cowboys go another head coach, it's just like, who do the Cowboys get? I can tell you who I wish they would get, but that never ends up being who the Cowboys will actually get. They're cheapskates. They're penny pinchers, so they're not going to go out there and get you a Ben Johnson. That's just, no, that's never going to happen. And then obviously a first-year coach going into the spotlight of Dallas, I just don't know. But a disappointing end to the season. We didn't lose in the postseason, but this makes it 28 straight years. Cowboys haven't even sniffed an NFC Championship appearance. They weren't close this year. They had a truly abysmal season, and don't let this we lost the last 2 games of the season, but there was that time where we won the 4 out of the 5. Just don't let that blind you. Don't let that blind you and confuse you that, oh man, this team played hard. No, this team still is, they still have shortcomings, and they're still not a championship team. And there are things that I think they can do to still remain in contention, but Jerry and Steven, y'all. Jerry and Steven, y'all. I think it's the same thing every single year, and I feel like a broken record. Whether we lose in the divisional playoff game, whether we lose and we're already eliminated by week 18, it seems to be the same old story, and this is frustrating. I'm just really glad the season's over. I'm really glad. I'm really happy it's over, and we can just move on with our lives and forget about it. But that's all I got to say, guys. Thank you so much for another season. I know I was off a little bit, and if you watch the Madden prediction videos, I kind of explain why. I got a new job in my career, and it was just a difference in shifts. And so I'll still be here. I'm super excited to continue to bring Cowboys content. So I'm not going to be going anywhere. I've noticed that during the offseason, I'm a lot more active than I think I'm going to be. So I'm definitely going to be around, still going to be making videos. And again, I apologize for not being on as I was the past few weeks with the postseason, with the post-game reactions. But like I said, new job, new career. I do this as a side hustle. But I tried to stay active as much as I could. But I appreciate each and every one of you. I think we had a fun, great year. I love doing the live shows with y'all. I love doing the Madden prediction videos, whether you came on TikTok, X, Instagram, or here on YouTube. We grew, and I love that. And so it's going to be interesting to see what the Cowboys do this offseason, and I will be here covering it, taking a look at it, talking with you guys. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. I love you guys. I love the community that we built over the past four seasons. And yeah, this wraps up my 4th season covering the Dallas Cowboys. And it's going to be a lot of fun moving forward. So be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And for the last time of this season, go Cowboys.